Hello everyone, welcome back and thank you for joining us. In today's video, we delve into a topic that has been recently a subject of immense discussion and speculation. The Taliban's stance on supporting Palestine and the potential deployment of fighters against Israel. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell for the latest updates. Let's get started. The ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip is significantly influencing the security dynamics in South and West Asia, particularly within the Islamic world. As various countries react to the conflict, their positions on recognizing Palestine and their relationships with Israel come to the forefront, reflecting their standing in the Islamic world. Among the Asian governments responding, the response of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan is particularly noteworthy. Religious identity plays a crucial role in shaping the security engagements of Afghanistan in the Middle East, emphasizing its unwavering support for Palestine. The Taliban leadership has historically shared certain ideological connections with Hamas and maintains consistent support for the statehood of Palestine. Given the geopolitical and security implications of Afghanistan's involvement in the Middle East, particularly with regard to Palestine, it is crucial to analyze the responses of Taliban to the current crisis. On November 24, 2023, Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas agreed to a 4-day truce and initiated daily prisoner swaps, temporarily halting the ongoing Israel-Gaza conflict. Throughout the conflict, the stance of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan remained unclear. While the regime expressed sympathy for the Palestinian cause, it neither condemned nor praised the parties involved. The Taliban's supreme leader, Hibatullah Akhundzada, has been notably quiet on the Israel-Hamas conflict in Gaza. The group issued a statement criticizing Israel's besieging of Gaza while calling on the international community to address the crisis. The only senior Taliban official to comment on the issue was Sirajuddin Haqqani, the acting interior minister, who stated, "We do not interfere in others' internal affairs, but we have faith-based sympathy with Muslims." The Taliban had denied claims that they were trying to join Hamas fighters after a fake post on the X social media platform. Formerly, Twitter claimed the Afghan Taliban wants to travel to fight in the war. Some argue that this public backing away from active support for the Islamist militant group Hamas may possibly have angered some of their own cadres. A formal statement from Kabul was issued at the end of November, responding to Israel's announcement of a 4-day pause in operations. The Taliban criticized Western nations for what they perceived as a duplicitous position on the conflict. The Taliban argued that while the international community raised concerns about human rights violations in Afghanistan, it did not do the same for Palestine. The Taliban accused the West of hypocrisy, specifically citing the strike on Gaza's Al-Mamdani hospital and accusing Western governments of overtly courting Israel during the crisis. The Taliban Ministry of Foreign Affairs criticized the West for damaging its credibility by not actively supporting Hamas while highlighting human rights violations in Gaza. In the initial phase of the conflict, the opposing forces to the Taliban appeared more resolute in supporting the Palestinians. For example, the Supreme Council of National Resistance for the Salvation of Afghanistan backed Hamas's attack on Israel, issuing a statement. Muhammad Mohaqiq, a council member, engaged in a telephonic conversation with Ziad al-Nakhala, the leader of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad group. Conversely, there was no proactive response from the ruling Taliban administration. Former Governor Atta Muhammad Noor and Maryam Soleimankil criticized the Taliban's perceived lack of support for Gaza on social media platforms. Interestingly, Hamas had congratulated the Afghan Taliban and praised its leadership for ending U.S. occupation and seizing power in Afghanistan on August 15, 2021. Around the same time, Hamas also released photos of a meeting between its leader, Ismail Haniyeh, and a Taliban delegation led by Mullah Baradar at the Taliban office in Doha, Qatar. Taliban itself, being a militant Islamist movement, was expected by many to actively support Hamas in its fight against Israel. In this context, it can be noted that Taliban's supreme leader calls himself Amir al-Momineen, the commander of the faithful, which in essence signifies that he perceives himself to be the leader of all the believers across geographies. Yet, active support of the Taliban towards Hamas has been largely absent so far. The question, therefore, is what is stopping the Taliban supreme leader from actively supporting Hamas and opposing Israel? In the following segment, we will discuss the factors that may have influenced the Taliban regime's response to the Gaza conflict. First, the Taliban is aware that United States support is critical for gaining international legitimacy, securing international aid, as well as removal of sanctions on the regime. If the Taliban enters the arena in active support of Hamas, there could be a reconsideration in America's approach towards the Taliban. According to United Nations, Afghanistan is facing the world's largest humanitarian crisis, as more than 28.3 million people, or over two-thirds of the population, are in need of humanitarian assistance. For the time being, the Taliban needs the support of the United States as also allies in addressing challenges faced by Afghanistan, and would not be willing to jeopardize its equation with the United States by openly supporting Hamas. Second, even after more than 2 years in power, the Taliban regime is yet to be recognized by the international community, and one of the reasons behind that is the regime's unwillingness to establish an inclusive political order in Afghanistan. The Taliban believes that the determination of the nature of the government is an internal matter and does not want to be dictated by others on the issue. Sirajuddin Haqqani's response to the Gaza conflict is also indicative of non-interference in the internal affairs of other countries. Considering their sensitivity to external interference in their affairs by not interfering in the Gaza war, the Taliban perhaps wants to persuade the world not to interfere in their internal affairs. To summarize our discussions, the current responses from Taliban regime largely align with the past attitudes of previous Afghan regimes towards Israel and Palestine. It appears that the Afghan Taliban looked at the current Gaza conflict from the perspective of the ruling authority in Afghanistan and not as an Islamic militant group. Taliban's restrained response to the Israel-Hamas crisis was a byproduct of its own national interest. The quest for international legitimacy, aid, and removal of sanctions may have encouraged the Taliban to follow such an approach towards the Israel-Hamas conflict. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for our next video.